This opening section sets the emotional foundation of Barry Gibb's life, showing that his story is not just about fame, but about family, memory, and endurance. It emphasizes that music was never separate from Barry's identity. It was woven into his childhood, his relationships, and his sense of purpose. From the beginning, the paragraph highlights how Barry's later reflections are shaped by age and loss, not ego or achievement. At 78, his honesty feels earned, born from decades of carrying both success and grief. The focus on Andy Gibb signals that this story will move beyond chart-topping hits into something more intimate. The pain of being an older brother who survived. The tone reminds readers that behind legendary careers are deeply human emotions: love, regret, responsibility, and longing. This introduction prepares us to see Barry not as an untouchable icon, but as a man still processing his past, still honoring those he loved, and still learning what truth means late in life. Early roots and the birth of the Bee Gees. This paragraph explains how Barry's musical identity was shaped long before fame arrived. It shows that the Bee Gees were not manufactured stars, but brothers who grew up learning discipline, harmony, and teamwork together. Their early performances in Australia weren't glamorous, but they were formative. These years taught Barry persistence and cooperation, reinforcing that success came from shared effort rather than individual ambition. The paragraph also highlights how Barry naturally stepped into a leadership role, not through control, but through responsibility and vision. Music became a safe space where family bonds deepened, allowing each brother to express himself while still belonging to something larger. This foundation explains why the Bee Gees' harmonies felt so emotionally connected. Because they were. The paragraph humanizes their rise, reminding us that legendary success often begins with modest dreams, family support, and countless quiet hours of practice that shape both character and craft. Global stardom and a defining sound. Here, the focus shifts to the moment when the Bee Gees moved from promise to phenomenon. This paragraph explains how Barry's falsetto and songwriting instincts became central to the group's identity and to an entire era of music. The songs mentioned weren't just popular, they became emotional landmarks for listeners worldwide. What makes this section human is how it balances success with grounding. Even as fame exploded, Barry remained anchored to his brothers, seeing achievement as collective rather than personal. The paragraph also clarifies that disco was only one chapter, not the full story. Barry's songwriting captured vulnerability and emotional truth, which is why the music still resonates decades later. Rather than glorifying celebrity, this section emphasizes emotional connection, reminding readers that true influence comes from making people feel understood, not just entertained. A songwriter beyond boundaries. This paragraph expands Barry's legacy beyond the Bee Gees, showing his extraordinary adaptability as a songwriter. It explains how his talent lay not only in writing hits, but in understanding people, especially voices and emotions. Barry's collaborations across genres demonstrate humility and curiosity, qualities that kept his work relevant across generations. Writing over 1,000 songs wasn't just about productivity, it reflected a lifelong commitment to craft. This section humanizes Barry by showing that his success came from listening, observing, and serving the music rather than chasing trends. His Hall of Fame honors feel earned because they represent emotional impact, not just numbers. The paragraph reminds us that great artists endure because they evolve, and Barry's ability to move between pop, disco, country, and soul shows a rare emotional intelligence that connects deeply with audiences. Family at the center of fame. This paragraph brings the story inward, reminding us that fame never replaced family for Barry Gibb. It explains how being part of a band made entirely of brothers intensified both joy and loss. When Andy, Morris, and Robin passed away, Barry didn't just lose collaborators, he lost pieces of himself. The emotional weight of being the last surviving Gibb brother is presented with quiet honesty. Rather than collapsing under grief, Barry chose remembrance. He kept their music alive, not as nostalgia, but as living memory. This section humanizes resilience. showing that strength doesn't mean moving on. It means carrying love forward. Barry's decision to honor his brothers through music reveals deep loyalty and emotional responsibility. The paragraph underscores that success can feel hollow without family, and that grief doesn't disappear. It simply learns how to live alongside purpose. Love, marriage, and stability. This section explains how Barry's personal life evolved alongside his career. His first marriage reflects the vulnerability of youth and the difficulty of building stability during sudden fame. Rather than judgment, the tone is understanding, showing how young artists often struggle with balance. Meeting Linda Gray marked a turning point. Their marriage provided emotional grounding and consistency that Barry needed to survive long-term fame. The paragraph highlights how family life became his anchor, offering meaning beyond applause. Raising children and later becoming a grandfather gave Barry a sense of continuity that fame alone could never provide. This section humanizes Barry as someone who learned from mistakes and valued emotional growth. It shows that lasting love isn't flashy. It's steady, forgiving, and resilient. His gratitude toward his wife and children reflects maturity and self-awareness earned over time. Home, identity, and belonging. This paragraph explores Barry's sense of belonging, showing how identity can stretch across cultures without losing roots. His dual citizenship symbolizes balance rather than division. Home is portrayed not as geography, but as emotional safety, a place where family and creativity coexist. This explanation reveals Barry's need for grounding after years of global travel and public life. Maintaining ties to both the UK and the US reflects his respect for his past and acceptance of his present. The paragraph humanizes aging by showing how priorities shift from ambition to peace. Barry's homes become spaces for reflection, music, and memory, offering refuge from the pressures of fame. This section reminds readers that success often requires rebuilding a sense of self, and that belonging isn't about fame. It's about where you feel whole. Friendship with Michael Jackson. This paragraph highlights Barry's compassion through his friendship with Michael Jackson. Rather than focusing on celebrity, it reveals a relationship built on trust and shared vulnerability. Barry provided Michael with something rare: normalcy and safety. Their bond shows Barry's protective nature and emotional intelligence. He didn't see Michael as a spectacle, but as a person overwhelmed by fame. This section humanizes both men, emphasizing quiet moments over public narratives. Barry's memories are tender, not sensational, reinforcing that true friendship often happens away from the spotlight. The paragraph also shows Barry's role as a stabilizing presence, someone others could lean on. It reinforces a recurring theme. Barry's greatest strength lies not in performance, but in empathy and loyalty. Legacy, loss, and reflection. This section explains how time reshaped Barry's understanding of success. Loss softened ambition and deepened reflection. Music became both comfort and reminder, carrying echoes of his brothers with every note. Rather than retreating, Barry continued performing as an act of remembrance. This paragraph humanizes aging, showing how grief doesn't fade, it transforms. Barry's resilience comes from acceptance, not denial. His legacy isn't just the songs he wrote, but the way he honors the past without being trapped by it. This section reminds readers that reflection often brings clarity, and that legacy is measured not only by achievements, but by how one carries love forward after loss. The truth about fame and addiction. This paragraph addresses the most painful truth Barry shared: Andy's struggle with addiction. It's explained with compassion rather than blame. Barry's honesty comes from grief, not judgment. He acknowledges helplessness, the unbearable reality that love cannot always save someone. The paragraph humanizes guilt, showing how Barry continues to question himself even decades later. This reflection isn't about rewriting history, but about honoring truth. It emphasizes that addiction is complex and cruel, often overpowering even strong family support. Barry's words reflect sorrow, not shame, reinforcing that Andy's legacy is not defined by his struggles. This section invites empathy and understanding rather than sensationalism,